Oh no, I don't know. Not only would my family never buy a Ford, nobody I knew who was Jewish would ever buy a Ford. A lot of these people that we thought of as heroes in those days, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, they had a lot of bad stuff about them. And the fact is, not a lot of people knew. I mean, the Jews knew that Ford was anti-Semitic, but the whole world didn't know.
When the average American thinks of Henry Ford, they think of an innovator, a pioneer, and a true American hero. The man that created the $5 workday, the assembly line, and the affordable motor car. They think of the man who revolutionized American industry and transportation, and whose influence on society today stands below almost no man. They rarely think of Henry Ford, the Jew-hating, Nazi-sympathizing bigot who devoted much of his life to spreading his controversial beliefs of hatred. Ford's legacy today only tells a small part of the famous industrialist's life. Henry Ford was born on July 30th, 1863, to humble beginnings on his father's farm in Greenfield Township, Michigan. The oldest of 5 children, Ford was described by a young age as being curious and intelligent, yet restless. For his 13th birthday, he received a watch from his father. Ford quickly took apart the watch and reassembled it, sparking his interest in machinery. Friends and neighbors were impressed, and requested that he fix their timepieces too, gaining Ford a reputation as a talented watch repairman. After the death of his beloved mother Mary, Henry Ford left his family farm at the age of 16 to take an apprenticeship as a machinist in Detroit, later writing, "I never had any particular love for the farm. It was the mother on the farm I loved." Despite his claims, Henry Ford would return to farm life in 1888 in order to support his new wife Clara. However, Ford still longed for a job in the exciting world of machinery. In 1891, Ford was hired as an engineer by the Edison Illuminating Company. Due to his natural talent with machinery, in just 2 years, Ford was promoted to chief engineer. As chief engineer, Ford now had more time and money to focus on his obsession of building a horseless carriage. By 1896, Ford had constructed his first gas-powered automobile, the Ford quadricycle. Ford presented the quadricycle to a team of Edison executives, as well as Thomas Edison himself, who encouraged Ford to keep developing his product. Finally, in 1903, Ford established the Ford Motor Company. Between 1903 and 1908, the company produced several different automobiles, most of which sold in the hundreds or few thousands a year. In October of 1908, the Ford Motor Company came out with the Model T, the car that would change the world and propel Henry Ford to an unparalleled level of success and fame.
There's one car that takes you anywhere you want to go, the Model T. Strong, sturdy, with a will of its own. Here's how they put them together at the Highland Park plant. A car comes off the end of the line every 10 seconds.
Although automobiles had already existed for decades, they were mostly scarce, and only members of the upper class could afford them. The Model T was the first car available to the middle class and was an instant success. In 1914, Ford sponsored the development of the moving assembly line technique of mass production. Simultaneously, he introduced the $5 workday, equivalent to $120 in 2016, and the 40-hour workweek as a method of keeping the best workers loyal to his company, setting the standard for quality industrial wages in America. By 1918, half of all cars in America were Model Ts, and by 1927, the Ford Motor Company had produced 15 million Model Ts. As the Ford Motor Company grew, Ford's individual popularity and fame did as well. In a time before big movie stars, Henry Ford was one of the most famous men on the planet and was very influential. When Henry Ford spoke, people listened, no matter the content of his dialogue. During his childhood, a young and ambitious Henry Ford held no known anti-Semitic or bigoted views. However, during the late 19th century and early 20th century, there was a prominent anti-Semitic climate in the United States. The first instance of Ford's anti-Semitic views occurred in the beginning years of World War I. Ford was in strong opposition to the war, stating that he would give up all the money he had to stop it. Consequently, herds of pacifists looked to Ford to help bring awareness to their cause. Eventually, Ford was convinced by a Jewish Hungarian woman named Rosika Schwimmer to take part in an anti-war stunt in which a delegation of pacifists would be sent to Europe on what was dubbed the Peace Ship. Ford became ill on the journey, and his sole speech during the campaign was absolute nonsense, speaking more about his new tractor than peace in Europe. The stunt would turn out to be an utter failure. Ford would lose nearly $10 million by today's standards and was mocked endlessly by the media. Although no declarations of peace emerged from the expedition, one very important thing did emerge due to the peace ship: Henry Ford's anti-Semitic beliefs. Before the peace ship even departed, Ford ranted to Schwimmer. "I know who caused the war. The German Jewish bankers. I have the evidence here," Ford declared, slapping his pocket. "Facts. I can't give them out yet because I haven't got them all, but I'll have them soon." This trip would become the basis for Ford's anti-Semitic views in the many decades to follow. One night, in the coming years since the peace ship, a Ford Motor Company executive, staying at work late, decided to tide himself over with a candy bar. After some small talk, Ford took a bite of the man's candy bar, claiming, "This stuff isn't as good as it used to be, is it? The Jews have taken hold of it. They're cheapening it to make more money out of it." Coincidentally, that night happened to be the 4th anniversary of Ford's peace ship expedition. So the executive asked Ford what he got out of the trip. Ford replied, "I know who makes the wars. The international Jewish bankers arrange them so they can make money out of them. I know it's true because a Jew on the peace ship told me. That man knew what he was talking about, gave me the whole story. We're going to tell the whole story one of these days and show them up." Ford had become obsessed with the idea of an international Jew conspiracy, the belief that a group of Jews ran the world behind the scenes to benefit themselves and their kind, a belief that Ford tried to spread all across the globe. In January of 1920, Ford purchased a local newspaper called the Dearborn Independent in order to express his ideas without having them garbled, distorted, or misrepresented by what he saw as the crooked media. At first, the Dearborn Independent produced stories emphasizing the importance and influence of rural America, declaring life outside the cities as the true America. Then, on May 22, 1920, the Dearborn Independent reached the homes of thousands of Americans with the headline, "The International Jew, the World's Problem." This marked the beginning of 91 straight issues, which would eventually be reprinted as a book and translated into 16 languages, regarding what Ford saw to be as the common source for all the evil in the world, the Jew. Ford's outspoken anti-Semitic views led him to a relationship with the most infamous anti-Semite the world has ever seen, Nazi leader Adolf Hitler. As a young politician, Hitler was absolutely enamored with Henry Ford and his radical beliefs. According to a 1922 New York Times article, Hitler kept a large portrait of Henry Ford in his Munich office, and many copies of Ford's International Jew were found scattered across the room. Hitler even said of Ford, "You can tell Herr Ford that I am a great admirer of his. I shall do my best to put his theories into practice in Germany. I regard Henry Ford as my inspiration." During Hitler's early years in politics, he was not very successful. He had trouble getting support for his anti-Semitic policies, but Henry Ford changed that. Henry Ford's autobiography, My Life and Work, and book, Today and Tomorrow, were bestsellers in Germany. In March of 1923, when the prospect of a Ford presidential run was a hot topic across the nation, a reporter from the Chicago Tribune interviewed Hitler on his thoughts, with Hitler commenting, I wish I could send some of my shock troops to Chicago and other big American cities to help in the elections. We have just had his anti-Jewish articles translated and published. The book is being circulated to millions throughout Germany. Soon, Ford's anti-Semitic views were shared by millions of Germans, and as a result, Hitler gained support and power. In Hitler's infamous autobiography, Mein Kampf, not only is Ford the only American mentioned in the text, but some passages are so similar to Ford's International Jew that many historians claim Hitler plagiarized Ford's work. Hitler's undying admiration for Ford culminated in Hitler's decision to reward Ford the Grand Cross of the Order of the German Eagle, the highest honor a foreigner could receive from the Nazi government, in 1938. The award, which Ford shares with just 4 other men, including Mussolini, came with a personal congratulations from Hitler and was accepted on Ford's 75th birthday. However, Hitler's support for the American mogul was not a one-way street. On December 19, 1922, the New York Times ran the headline, "Berlin hears Ford is backing Hitler." Ford's ideological support of the Nazi Party was well known at the time, and his financial support was heavily rumored. In 1939, the German Ford Company gifted Hitler with 50,000 marks to celebrate his birthday and thank him for his loyalty to the company. During World War II, when the U.S. Army liberated the Ford plants in Cologne and Berlin, they found company documents extolling the genius of the Führer. Although Ford denied the claims, a U.S. Army investigation accused German Ford as serving as an arsenal of Nazism, all with the consent of the parent company back in the United States. Given the disturbing nature of Henry Ford's character, should the next logical step for American society be to denunciate Henry Ford as a cultural icon in America? No. Ford would renounce his anti-Semitic views later in his life, apologizing for anyone he may have hurt. While a spread of hate and anti-Semitism is obviously a disgrace to society, Henry Ford did numerous things throughout his life that also benefited American society to a great degree. Without Ford's development of the affordable car, introduction of the $5 workday, and implementation of the moving assembly line technique of mass production, American society would be far below the standards of today. The biggest problem America has with its history is the constant need to romanticize everything. When discussing Henry Ford, both the good and bad should be discussed. Ford's legacy should tell the story of a revolutionary industrialist, along with the tale of a man who had some horrific anti-Semitic views.